Every time a new skyscraper goes up or an old building comes down, it creates a literal mountain of waste. Today, we're digging into a pretty radical idea. What if we could take all that rubble and use it as the foundation for our future cities? Let's dive in.
Okay, so before we can get to the solutions, we've got to wrap our heads around just how big this problem really is. The very buildings that give us shelter, our homes, our offices, they're leaving a massive and growing footprint on our planet's climate.
All right, take a look at this graph. It tells a pretty stark story, doesn't it? Ever since the Industrial Revolution, the amount of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has just skyrocketed. You can see it right there in that sharply rising line. That's basically a thickening blanket of CO2, and it's trapping more and more heat, warming our entire planet.
So you might be wondering, where is all this CO2 coming from? Well, a huge chunk of it comes from the global construction industry. I mean, it is an absolute giant when it comes to chewing through raw materials and energy. It's one of the key drivers of these emissions.
And get this whole trend isn't even slowing down. In fact, in places like India, it's actually speeding up. We're talking about a construction market that's set to become the third largest in the entire world. This incredible boom is a massive environmental challenge, for sure, but it's also a golden opportunity to start doing things differently.
Okay, so let's bring this down from the clouds and the atmosphere right down to the ground level. All of this building and tearing down creates a very real, very heavy problem, a literal mountain of waste.
Let's get specific about what we're talking about. The official term is construction and demolition waste, or C&D waste. But really, just think about what that is. It's the busted concrete from a demolished bridge, the old drywall from a kitchen renovation, the extra bricks left over from a new building. That's all C&D waste.
And it's easy to think this is all just about demolition, right? Knocking old buildings down. But it's not. Waste is being created at every single stage. When crews clear a site, when they dig foundations, during the new construction itself, repairing roads, remodeling, and then finally demolition. It's just a constant stream.
So what happens to all this stuff? The concrete, the steel, the wood? Well, for a long, long time, the answer was pretty simple. Just dump it in a landfill. But our landfills are hitting their limit. This stuff is heavy, it's bulky, and just burying it is creating some serious environmental headaches. But what if there's a better way? This is where the story starts to get interesting.
What if we just stopped looking at all this as garbage and started seeing it as a gold mine of raw materials? That shift in thinking is everything, and it's guided by a really simple but incredibly powerful new way of looking at things.
The solution follows something called the waste management hierarchy. Think of it like a pyramid. Right at the very top, the absolute best option is to reduce. That just means designing and building smarter so you create less waste to begin with. After that comes reuse, and then finally, recycle.
You see, when you start thinking with this 3R mindset, you completely change the game. You stop going in a straight line from build to trash, and you start creating a circle, where the end of one building's life is actually the beginning of something new.
Okay, this is the really cool part. This is where the theory hits the road, and we see some absolutely incredible transformations happening in the real world. So, seriously, when you look at a pile of broken concrete, twisted rebar, and old bricks, what do you see? Do you see a problem, or do you see potential?
I mean, check this out. That old concrete and masonry can be crushed up, reformed, and turned into brand new hollow bricks like these. And they're not just for structure. That hollow design provides amazing heat insulation, which makes the new buildings they're used in way more energy efficient.
And it's not just bricks. All those old roads and foundations we tear up? They can get a second life with something called recycled aggregates. Now, that's just a fancy way of saying we crush up the old concrete and asphalt. And it turns out it's the perfect ingredient for making super strong, durable pavement blocks for sidewalks and parking lots.
And the innovation just keeps going. Get this, even really specialized things, like these tactile checker tiles you see in subways, can be made from recycled C&D waste. These tiles are so important for helping guide the visually impaired. It's a perfect example of turning a huge environmental problem into something that helps people every single day. I mean, how cool is that?
And remember, we're not just talking about concrete and brick here. Think about all the metal in these buildings, especially steel. Steel is basically the superstar of recycling. It's already the most recycled material on Earth, and you can melt it down and reuse it over and over again without it ever losing its strength. So, okay, these are all amazing individual examples, but how do we scale this up? How do we weave all these ideas together and make this the standard way of doing things?
Well, in India, one of the main tools is something called griha.
You can think of it kind of like a report card for a building's environmental performance. It measures the whole shebang, from energy use to water conservation to waste management, and it creates a really clear standard for what a green building actually is.
And it's no surprise that at the very core of the GRIHA framework are the same principles we've been talking about. It actively rewards projects that lean into reducing waste, using recycled materials, and making sure waste is sorted properly right there on the construction site.
But here's what's really powerful. This system connects what's happening on a local construction site to these huge global goals. So look at the table. When a builder decides to use recycled materials, that's a local action. But because of GRIHA, that choice directly contributes to the UN Sustainable Development Goal for responsible consumption. It's this amazing chain reaction from a single building site all the way to global policy.
So, at the end of the day, the big takeaway is this. It's not just about one recycled brick or one green building. Each one of those choices is a tangible, concrete step towards building cities and communities that are stronger, more sustainable, and fairer for everyone who lives in them.
Which leaves us with one last big question to think about. Construction creates one of the biggest waste streams on the entire planet. But what if, with the right mindset and technology, we could turn that massive problem into our single greatest resource for building the future? That's the challenge, but it's also the incredible opportunity right in front of us. Thanks for joining me.